sense that if I tell you something and you tell it to somebody else, you have to say it exactly like I said it, like the words from Paul Laurence Dunbar and stuff. You know, I don't change anything, okay? But a historian, like, I could tell you a story and you could tell it to somebody else and you can embellish it with your own tongue, okay? But that's not what a griot does. A griot does it exactly the way it was told to them.
I think that's a beautiful place to start on the griot. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're getting into the concept of preserving traditions, right?
Yeah.
And I like that definition of when we're preserving these teachings, we are telling them exactly as they were told.
Exactly as they were told.
So can you talk about the importance of preserving accurate trend? Like, why is it so important to preserve words exactly as they were told?
Because when you change words, you change the meaning. Okay? If you say, for instance, when people first started writing, there was no punctuation. So I could read something that say, God is nowhere, or God is now here, because there's no punctuation. Okay? So that's how things get mistranslated. Okay? That's how they get misinterpreted. Because somebody will say, oh, well, what you're trying to say is, no. What I said was, what you said was, not what you interpret. Okay? But you don't have to agree with it, but exactly the way it was said. You know, like if you're in another country, and a child says, my mama, she pretty. You don't correct that child. You don't say, you're supposed to say, my mother, she is. Okay? My mama, she pretty. Okay? So you don't change it. You don't change it. But like if I tell you a story about 3 mice, you can make them mice as big or as little or, you know, as ugly or as nice as you want them because you're telling the story. Okay, but that's not history. That's not telling it the accurate way. So that's a difference. It's like the difference between rap and hip hop. You know, a lot of people don't know that there's a difference. You know, rap don't have to make no sense. You know? You know, Shorty in the club with a free dress on, waiting for the DJ to play a favorite song. I'm trying to remember how many drinks I done bought her, because tonight I'm making love to somebody's daughter. Okay, that don't have to make no sense. Okay? But if you say, I hear you flowing, but you don't be knowing that your ignorance that you're showing. Okay? So that edutainment, okay, the difference. Hip hop is a whole industry. It's clothes, it's fashion, it's culture, it's language, it's communication. Rap don't have to make no sense. Okay? So there's a difference. There's a big difference. You know, and a lot of people, especially older adults, aren't aware. They say, oh, it's, you know, it's a bunch of profanity and, you know, and all of that. But what I do is called edutainment, educational entertainment. So it's, I use, it's a teaching tool, a learning tool, and also motivational.
I like the concept of edutainment because that's kind of what happens when a center like the Latino Center has a pantheon. We're talking about Day of the Dead, but there's like all these flashy things and people dancing. Can you describe why edutainment is so important or why it's so important to put on community events that have entertainment but with the purpose to teach?
Because learning is not a painful process. It should be fun, okay? And Madison Avenue has figured out that if you put it in a rhyme, people will remember it. You know, my baloney has a first name is OSCA, you know, okay? Rhythm. So I tell students, if you have a class that's difficult and you're having problems with that class, make up a rhyme, make up a poem, make up a rap about it. You know, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. You know it's true, and I do too. You know, so you remember it. You can remember rhymes. That's the way we're wired. You know, I mean, how many people you know that have initials like MJ? You know, whatever. It seems to follow suit. So, but with AI and all this high tech, we're processing information different. Okay? It's making us process information different. Because you've got friends, family that you've been calling forever. Put your number in the phone. I bet tomorrow you can't remember it. Okay? You know, you want to know something, Google it. But as soon as you put it down, you forgot what it said. You know? I see people doing spoken word, and they're reading it. How come you wrote it? Why don't you have it in here? Okay, why can't you remember it? Because we're learning the process, and AI is, I mean, you know, and all they say, that's the new crack. Because all you're doing is following. You're following, you're following, you're following. You know? So we have to understand that communication is more than just words. More than just words on the screen. You know? I say, hey man, how you doing, Jorge? He said, oh, I'm going, okay. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I hear something. You don't sound right. I can't do that with a text. Okay, I can't do that with a text. You tell me you okay, or go to hell or whatever, I can take it any way I want to. You know? But if we're laughing and talking and I say, oh man, go to hell. You know? That's different, the body language. You know? You can see it. It's more than just sound. You know? What is the most religious things say? In the beginning was the word. Well, the word had to be a sound. Okay? They talk about the Big Bang Theory. Bang is a sound. Okay? So, you know, what are we talking about? When did words come about? You know? You know, I make up words. I know, like, if I'm doing some hip hop or rap or whatever, you know, I won't say motherfucker, but I can say fathermucker. All right, if grandma in the room, you know, I know how to change it up, you know. So
it's true. And I love this dissection of language and the importance of it. And I think when we talk about the creation of a word, as we were having a conversation, Kwanzaa was supposed to be spelled with one A at the end, but there was a big emphasis on there were 7 children. So let's
there were 7 children at the first Kwanzaa. And Dr. Karinga added an A so that each child would have a principal. Because there's 7 principles in the Nguzo Zaba. So that's why it's KWANZAA. Okay? And I'll read his words, you know, in here if I get a chance. Just throw it in.
No, yeah, and so you were present around when Kwanzaa.
I was there in '66.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I didn't really realize what I was going to. You know, it's ironic because Catherine Hall was at the first one. I was at the first one in Southern California, and I didn't know her. But 20, 30 years later, she and I started the birthing project, you know, here, and now we're all over the world. We're in 9 countries and 98 cities, you know. But we were, you know, I mean, people cross your path, and you cross people's paths for a reason, you know. But I didn't know who she was then, you know, and she didn't know me. But I just happened to be involved in doing some things with that. I've been a community organizer for many, many years when I came back from, you know, Nam and stuff.
And so what is Kwanzaa?
Kwanzaa, okay. Let me read what Dr. Kalinga says. So Dr. Maulana Kalinga, Egyptologist, archaeologist, professor in Long Beach. He asks this question: what is Kwanzaa? Kwanzaa is an African holiday. It's celebrated December 26th to January 1st. It's an event based on traditional African harvest celebration. The harvest of the first crops, the word Kwanzaa comes from the Kiswahili phrase matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits. It was a cause for thanksgiving to our ancestors in order to ensure a good harvest for the next year. During the harvest celebration, there was much feasting, drumming, dancing, storytelling, and strengthening of family ties. For African Americans, and I don't use that term, in the United States, Kwanzaa is a time to come together for the family and community. It's a time to restore our beliefs in the unity of black people and reaffirm our belief that elders should be respected. It's a time when we reinforce our value, our framework for our children. It is also a time to give thanks and enjoy the blessings of living and acting together for the family, the community. During Kwanzaa, we solemnly dedicate our minds, our hearts, our bodies, and our souls to the Nguzo Saba, which is the seven principles of the Black value system. The Nguzo Saba are, number one, umoja, which means unity, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. The second principle is TChaka, which means self-determination, to define, name, create, and speak for ourselves. Now we, as black people in this country, have been the most named people on the planet. You know, we would call Negroes, colored people, people from Niger, that's where the word nigger comes from. The only time that we named ourselves was in the 60s when we said, black is beautiful. I'm black and I'm proud. That was a concept conceived called dialectical materialism, which was just a 25-cent word of taking a negative and making a positive out of it. So, because before, black was viewed as a negative. But we said, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm black and I'm beautiful. Say it loud, okay? One day we woke up and somebody said, okay, from now on we're gonna call y'all African Americans. And we said, okay, and we haven't determined that. But we forgot the second principle of the Nguzo Saba, to name ourselves. Now, I don't use the term African American. I call, where it says race, I put ABA, American Born African. I have shirts and logos that say that, okay? Because that's where, if I was born, in Jalisco, I would still be an African born in Mexico. So I'm an African born American. Now my Asian friends, my Chinese friends, if we run across a Chinese that cannot speak the language, they call them ABC, American born Chinese. You can't speak the language, bro. So that made sense to me. And I said, to define myself, to name myself. When we were enslaved and brought over here, your name was changed. You said, my name is Jorge. He said, no, man, we're going to call you Charlie. Okay? We're going to call you George. What the hell is the J? All of that. Okay? So somebody else names you always to keep you down pressed. Okay? They change your name. They say, what would root? Kenta, Toby. So that's the first step is in changing your name, renaming you. You're not who you want to be. But on the side of the Great Pyramids at Giza, it says, know thyself. Know who you are. So whatever you want me to call you, that's what I will call you, because that's how you define yourself. So the third principle would be ujima, which means collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and solve them together. The next principle would be ujama, or ujama, which means economics, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our businesses and profit together from them. When we did that with Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, okay, racism was so blatant until people were killed. A whole town was destroyed, a whole culture. Now we're in the process of talking about reparations, okay? And all that is repaying people for what they paid in the past. All the old money in this country, okay, was built on the back of slave labor. Racism was created to justify slavery, okay, in any culture, not just black and white, but wherever people were enslaved, racism was created. It's like, you know, a lot of people have read things like The Three Musketeers, Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. How many people realize that was written by a black Frenchman, Alexander Dumas? Okay? You know, we sit under these incandescent lights created by a black man, you know, not Thomas Edison, okay, but Louis Latimer. There's a hall in Berkeley called Latimer Hall. And if you look it up, he owns the patent for the bulb, the filament, and the base. That's a whole light bulb, bro. Okay? So, you know, understand that we've been miseducated and lied to, okay, in order to keep us in subjugation. Miseducation, it's like ask the average person what language they speak. Oh, I speak English. Well, hell, are you from England? You know, do you know where England is on the map? You know? And if this language is only by one vote that the official language in this country is not German. One vote. This language is composed of Latin, German, and French. Okay? When you say good morning, that's from the German, Guten Morgen. Okay? When you sneeze, what do you say? Gesundheit. God bless you in German. The song America the Beautiful is the German national anthem, the Dutch Noberala. So people like Ben Franklin actually wanted it to be German, you know. So we speak German, Latin, and French and call it English. So we're miseducated, you know, because first of all, we don't even know what language we speak, you know? And it's added every day. I mean, you know, back in the day, nobody had terms like, I mean, I remember being called a nerd, you know, because I like to read, you know, education. I grew up in East Oakland. So being a nerd taught me how to fight, because I had to fight for being a nerd. Now being a nerd, that's the asshole you're gonna be working for, is that nerd. He's that high-tech dude, okay? So now it's a badge of honor, you know, but before it was like, oh no, I'm not a nerd, you know, but the funny thing is that I was teased and had to fight, you know, for wanting to learn, but by the same token, the baddest cats at school would pull me aside and say, man, can you help me with this homework? You know, can you show me how to do this problem? You know, and everything, and they looked out for you, you know? I mean, and when I grew up in East Oakland, man, some of the baddest cats in school was the ones that taught me how to fight because I helped them with their homework, you know? So when I went in the Marine Corps didn't teach me how to fight. You know, I knew how to fight. The Marine Corps teaches you how to kill. They don't teach you how to fight, okay? So therefore, I don't fight no more unless it's worth killing, you know? If it ain't worth that, I'm not doing it. You know, walk away. Hey, bro, you right. I'm sorry. Let me apologize so I don't have to kill you, okay? So, you know, you have to know who you are. You have to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
And talking about that, of knowing thyself, why is it so important to know where you come from and to reconnect with your cultural traditions?
For a number of reasons. Number one, for health reasons. For health reasons, both mental, physical, and metaphysical. Because actually, we're eating stuff that has been forced on us, that our bodies are not prepared for, that our DNA is not prepared for. There's a book called Folk Medicine, a little small book by Dr. Jarvis, and it says that actually you should be eating what your ancestors ate, because that's how your body is designed, you know. But ain't nobody told you about going to Burger King and get 2 for 1. You know, they're pushing bacon. You know, they're pushing beef. You know, you got to watch the milk you're drinking. You know, because with the chemicals will give men breast. You know, you got steroids. You know, you're feeding your animals all these chemicals and stuff, and we're taking that in our body. But we have to learn how to grow our own food and how to stop using pesticides and how to start eating right, okay, for our body. Because our whole system has been changed. And now we're talking about global warming, so that means that our food source is going to be totally different. In places like Japan, where they used to grow a certain kind of crops, they can't do that anymore because of global warming. So they're changing up and growing different kinds of stuff. So it's important to know where you came from, okay, to know where you're going. Because if you know what happened in the past, okay, then you're better prepared for the future, you know. So, and it's like, we need to read. We don't read anymore. We take things for granted. You know, we're like, oh, this says purified water. What does that term actually mean? That means ain't nothing in it. Okay? Why am I not drinking alkaline water? Okay? With a pH of at least 9.5. Okay? You know, why am I drinking sodas? Okay? I remember at McClatchy High School, they had soda machines in there, and the kids actually protested it and had them removed because the Dasani water is Coca-Cola. That's the same water you get out of your tap, you know? So we have to understand that we are being misdirected in terms of our health, in terms of our future, in terms of how we actually interact with each other. And we're kept separate because there's so many things in our culture that are similar, you know? Food, ritual, prayer. You know, babies don't cry in Chinese. When you hear a baby crying, you know that's a human baby. You know, it ain't an elephant, you know, or anything. Right. So we all laugh and cry in the same language, you know? So we have that in common as human beings, okay? But we're kept divided. But we're kept divided, you know, and that's on purpose. That's on purpose. And we have to understand that. Gentrification is just colonization by another name. That's all it is. Look at what's happening with Oak Park, okay? Gentrification, they call it. But what's happening? McGeorge School of Law is buying up Oak Park for years, okay? It's about the 4 Ps, politics, politricks, and political pimping, you know? And so we have to understand that there's a conflict going on, morally and ethically, you know? So we have to understand that we, as a people, and people of color, have to start being together. We have so much in common. We come from the same place. We all have the same ancestral heritage, okay? You know, we look at our African heritage, and Africa is not even an African word. Africa is a Roman word, okay? There was a Roman general called Cipriano Africanus who established a little colony in North Africa near Morocco, and since they couldn't make any headway, they called the entire continent Africa, and we called it Africa. It's just like Columbus was lost, and the Caribbean people found him. And he said, I discovered India. Well, y'all ain't Indians, but we'll call you Indians anyway, and we still do that. Okay, we still do that.
No, that is very true. Before we do that, is everything okay?
Yes, let me ask you a question. So we've been
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
Let me ask you a question. So we've been talking about so far the different 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and as we get to like the 5th principle of Kwanzaa, which is purpose. Why
Yeah,
is it,
keep me on track, man, because
yeah. So we're talking about, so we're on Kwanzaa, and we're talking about the different principles. So we're talking about Nia, and we're talking about purpose. Why is it important, especially for you as being like an elder, as being a leader? Why is it important to educate the young on what our purpose is, what our collective purpose? Why is it important?
it's important because that you have to know your inner self. You have to know who you are. You have to know also how you're connected. Everything is connected. So we have to know who we're connected to. You know, how did we come here? You know, when we talk about Black History Month, we start with slavery. Our history did not start with slavery. So while all of a sudden, you know, I'm talking about Kunta Kinte, you know, when I should be talking about Mansa Musa, when I should be talking about, you know, Shaka Zulu, you know, when I should be talking about the great kings and queens of my continent, our origin. You know, the Dogon people have a constellation in their cave that has been there for thousands of years. And it says that this is where we come from. The Hubble telescope just found that a few years ago, okay? So we not even, that's a whole nother concept, okay, about where it originally came from. Okay, and I don't want to get into that right now.
No, I appreciate that. I think this is a great time to ground the interview back in Day of the Dead, but also Kwanzaa celebration of community, culture, of life. And so, let's see. I love what you're saying. I love the dissection of language. I like this connection to knowing where you're coming from, knowing where you are, to know where you're going. And I think this is a great segue into talking about altars. Altars are a universal thing. And oftentimes people say, oh, that is Dia de los Muertos, right? But then it's like, in Kwanzaa, you also create altars. Can you talk about what is an altar?
Okay, yeah, altar. Okay, you mentioned Nia, purpose. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community and restore our people to our traditional greatness. Now, the altars are done symbolically. We have the colors that Marcus Garvey created for the African diaspora, the red, the black, and the green. The black represents the people of Africa. The red represents the blood that have been shed. The green represents the earth, Mother Earth. So the red, the black, and the green. And the candles are called the Mshuma, okay? It's the candle set. There are 3 candles on each side. And as the first candle is lit on December 26th, the black candle, the next day would be TChaka the Griot, self-determination. So you would light a green candle. The third day, you would light a red candle. And you alternate each day. And each day has a different meaning and a different principle. And that's what you celebrate during that time. Also, so each day has a different meaning, a different principle. You celebrate the meaning of that day. The Kanara, which is the candle holder, okay? Very similar to the Jewish menorah, which has the 9 candles, okay? I decorate these, I make the kits, Kwanzaa kits, so people can celebrate Kwanzaa at home. So this is an entire kit. The straw mat, the foundation, the mkika, okay? Because you cannot build a substantial without a foundation. You have to have a strong foundation. Straw is both flexible, pliable, and durable. So, so that is the base. The fruit would be symbolic of the harvest. Okay, I have a book there. It could be a book, it could be a video, it could be anything, but it's the gifts are for the children, and they have to be something either nutritional or something educational. Okay, it could be something that you made by hand, because the gifts are for the children, and it's for because I love you, because you accomplished good grades, this year. I add Hoppin' John, okay, which is black-eyed peas and rice. Now that's traditional out of our enslavement, that on New Year's, black people always, the first meal you have is black-eyed peas and rice. Now black-eyed peas came from Africa, okay? Black-eyed peas and rice. Now rice was also brought, and peas and seeds were brought in the women's hair. So they could plant them. They could plant the rice. But that's how the seeds got here. Okay, they were brought. You realize everybody wasn't suitable to be a slave. Okay? If you didn't have a skill, say for instance, the Hausa people. The Hausa people rode horses, okay, and wore armor, just like, the Europeans. So young Hausa boys on the plantation were used to handle the horses because they knew how. That's why today jockeys are small. They wear the colors of the master's plantation, okay, all right? And they had songs like Camptown Races, lead the song, doo-dah, doo-dah, okay? Plantation owners racing against each other became what became the first Kentucky Derby. So the winners of the first Kentucky Derby competition were little black slave children, primarily Hausa, okay? If you knew how to plant cotton, if you knew how to grow rice, okay? If you had a skill, you were a valuable slave. If you didn't have no skill, ain't no telling that a lot of people didn't survive because they had no skill. They had no skill. 150 million Africans were kidnapped from the continent. Only 3 million made it to this continent.
Right. No, the mass death, the loss, right? There's a lot of loss of connection, language, culture, the families that are split up, and I think that's part of what when we've been talking to folks, it's how do you deal with this loss, right? There's a loss of a person, and there's a loss of a people, and I think grounding it back into this. Can you just for the sake of documentary, before we go to the next, can you say a sentence just says the 7 principles of Kwanzaa are A, B, C, D, just so we can have your voice to be able to
Sure.
show people.
Yeah, not a problem. That's what we're doing here. Okay, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa: unity, umoja; self-determination, kulichagalia; ujima, collective work and responsibility; ujamaa, cooperative economics; nia, purpose; kuumba, creativity; imani, faith. The 7 principles. These are used to guide you every day. Like, you have to have faith in what you're doing, in your community, in your spirituality. The purpose. What is your purpose? Why are we here? What are we doing? Okay? So it's not difficult. You know, it's not an elaborate kind of thing. It's just, um, it's basically morals and common sense. Okay? So, integrity. You know, I was raised by my grandparents that your word is your bond. If you tell a man you're going to do something, you do that. Whether you want to, whether you like it, you know, or not. And everybody that's out there married know what that is. You tell your wife you're going to do something, damn it, you better do it. Okay? Because you know the circumstances and the consequences if you don't. Okay? But it's like, it's being reliable, being dependable. You know? That's the only way I can say it. You know? It's about being honest with yourself. See, I don't believe, and first of all, I want to explain that Kwanzaa has no religious ties. You know, you can be Baptist, Methodist, Big Nose, Lithuanian, or whatever you want to be and still celebrate Kwanzaa, okay? It doesn't interfere with your spiritual belief. It's a thanksgiving. It's a thanks to the Most High for what you have received, for what you have learned, okay? So it's no religious tie. I don't believe in organized religion anymore. I think your true religion is the way you live your life, okay? Because we look at religion as something we do on a special time, a special day. Other cultures look at religion as a way of life, okay? As a way of life. That's what you do every day. This is how you guide your life. Because if you don't, you know, there are some consequences, some are real, some are imagined or whatever. But it's fear and repetition, basically what it is. So, I believe, you know right and wrong. You know, I know, when Cain busted Abel in the head, he knew that was wrong. Okay? so, there was no religion tied to that. You know? There was no Christianity, anything like that. Abraham is the father of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay? The same person. It's like, you got 4 or 5 kids, each one of them will take a different path, okay? But that don't mean they're still not spiritual, okay? Because I don't care what you call, I'm at the point in my life now where I don't care what you call God. You're still talking about the same power. You're still talking about the supreme being, you know? And if you speak another language, I wouldn't expect you to use the same name that I use, you know? So there's some misinterpretation, you know, and there are people that are out there, doing political pimping, okay? So, but it doesn't matter because the Spirit, the God, I am in here. That's what it is, you know. I remember I used to live on a farm out by the airport, and I remember going home one day, and there was a guy whose car was stopped on the road not far from my house. And I stopped to help him get his car started. And he had all these tattoos and everything, and I thought it was Aryan Brotherhood, and all that. And I helped him get his car started and all that and everything. And he said, man, you stopped and helped me. He said, I wouldn't have stopped to help you. I said, I know that. He said, well, why'd you do it? I said, so you could pass it on to somebody else. And he's like, man, nobody ever did that to me before. And I'm like, okay, now you got to rethink where you at. So cool.
That's such a beautiful anecdote. Thank you so much for sharing it. I think that gives us a lot to think about of doing for others, even if they won't do for us. I think that's very timely with some of the stuff we've been talking about, that certain people behave in ways you're like, let me lead by example. And I think as far as sound bites, I think that's a great way to conclude this portion, and I would like to do that low-key lighting, because then we're going to ask you about death and the process of life, and I feel like, what do you think, or is there something you want to ask with this specific lighting?
Okay, speak just a little louder.
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
It's not going to be as low key as yesterday because you're going to
have a lot of light spill.
That's okay.
Ooh.
That's fine. We'll work with it.
Yeah.
So
Saving?
what you touched on it. Oh, give me just that. Just
Uh-huh.
1 second. You touched on it earlier when you said that Kwanzaa, this tradition can be for anyone.
Can be, yeah.
Can be for anyone.
Yeah.
Can I hear you say tradition is for everyone?
I'm sorry, say what?
Tradition is for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone should have tradition and ritual, okay, in their life, because that makes it consistent. Because when you develop a habit, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, the one thing you can be sure is the longer you keep it, the stronger it gets. Okay? So, ritual. It's like we used to come home and eat dinner all together as a family at a certain time. Okay? And that was the time that we could sit and discuss what went on with you today. What happened with you today? What happened in school? What happened at work? You know, well, what did you learn today that you didn't know yesterday? Okay? My grandmother, Ethel, was 102 years old when she died here in Sacramento. This was a lady with a third grade education and a PhD in life. And when I first saw the movie Soul Food, I'm like, they've been in my grandma's kitchen. Because the table was laid out. You know, I mean, she had, you know, food and fried chicken and sweet potato pie and everything else you wanted to eat. And everybody, you know, me, her, grandpa, one of my brothers and, you know, stuff, we get ready to sit down and eat. And just before you get ready to take a bite, my grandma saying, baby, tell grandma what you learned today. And my dumbass brother would say, nothing. And she'd say, go to your room. Go to your room. She said, baby, you done spent 8 hours of your life and you ain't learned nothing. You don't need to eat grandma food. Go to your room. Now me, I'm like, I'm gonna eat, bro. So I would go to the outhouse and they had magazines in the house because we didn't have toilet paper. I'd read something in a magazine and I'd come back and she'd say, what you learned today, baby? I said, I learned magnetism, grandma. And she said, you did? You learned that all by yourself? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, but I just keep on living because there's enough you don't know to make a whole new world. You know? And she said, now tomorrow, I want you to learn something different. And I would, you know? And it's like, she said, them 8 hours, you can't get them back, baby. And so when I'm talking with students, I say, if you've been to detention 5 times in a semester, a class period is only 45 minutes, right? So what's 5 times 45? How much education are you losing by being in detention that nerd is getting that you're gonna be working for, okay? And when they think about it like that, it might make a little more sense to them, okay? Somebody else is getting some information that you know, don't want to get not because you're stupid, but because your mind is so fast, you're ready to go to something else, okay? But that person is learning, and you're not, and they're gonna use that, and you're gonna be working for that fool, okay? And so it's like, think about what it is that you need. Know thyself. Know what you want to do. Because when you graduate from high school, you're not going to see 98% of those people again in life. Okay? You may run into them at a party or at the bar or something, you know, but you're not going to see 98% of those people again in your life. So it's about you. It's about you, what you want to do. How you gonna do it? You know? And it's like you have to have a plan. Plan to work your plan. You know? Because if you don't, you just wander through life. I did. You know? But I was fortunate. I had mentors. I had people, you know, who said, You know, people tell you all the time, you got potential, you know? But potential doesn't mean that you have what it takes to be something. But right now, you ain't shit, you know? Okay? But you can be. But you can be. And that's up to you, you know? So it just depends on how you think about yourself, you know? How valuable are you? What do you want to do? You know? So it's like, I was always stubborn, determined, you know? I was shy. I was so shy that, like, if I was late for school or the church, I wouldn't go in. I'm like, Grandma just gonna have to kick my butt, you know, because I'm gonna take this one for the team, bro, because I'm too shy to go in. But I realized that embarrassment is only when you're not in control, okay? Because you got a class clown. And this person will come in and make noise, disturb everything, come in late, you know, hey man, what's going on? You know, they're in charge. But if you come in and you say, oh, I'm embarrassed because I'm late, you're not in charge. So the President of the United States can be making the inaugural address, and he can be so nervous till he pee on himself. There's two things that will save him. One is if he got on a black suit, and the other one is if he makes a joke about it, if he takes control of it. Okay? So what do you want to?
So, what has death taught you? Who have you lost?
What has death taught?
What has death taught you?
And you can when you look this way at me when you answer your question, so that we can keep.
Okay, do you?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. What has death taught me? Death has taught me the meaning of life, because death has no significance. Life has no significance until you're close to death. Okay? And then you start to appreciate. I recently just lost my sister, Eva Harris. And Eva and I were born on the same day. I'm older, I'm 4 years older. Well, we were both born February 28th. And we were like, that was my other half. You know, that was my ride or die partner. You know, I mean, if she hit the light switch, I'm turning over the table. You know, we've been in funny situations, we've been in serious situations, we've been in dangerous situations together, but we knew we had each other. And losing her is like, I'm still trying to adjust to it, because I wake up and say, I want to call Eva and tell her, I'm like, I can't do that, okay? But death is simply a part of life. It's another phase, because the car, the spirit, the chi, doesn't die. It doesn't die. That's why we have our ancestors. That's why we have hunches. You know, we see something and it's familiar, it's like, wait a minute, that's deja vu. But it's like, maybe I did that in another life. Maybe I did that in another phase. Because death is not, if you've ever been choked out or knocked unconscious or anything, you realize how easy death is. How easy death is. And then, when it's time for you to die, you'll go to the next phase. That's just how I feel about it. We all have to die. But when death comes, we've lost a book. We've lost a chapter out of life. Because the person that died has information that died with them, has knowledge that died with them. And if we don't pass that on before we go, then we've failed our next generation. You know, because what do they do when they conquer a people? They don't want them to learn. They burn the libraries at Alexandria. How much knowledge was lost, okay? When we look at places like Red China, they lock up journalists They kill people who write because it's knowledge, it's information. But death takes that away, unless we write it down, unless we record it, unless we preserve it, unless we pass it on. So I don't fear death. You know, I've looked death in the face and kissed him full on the mouth. I spent 18 months in Vietnam. I've seen death all around me. And your first reaction, if you're honest with yourself, is I'm glad it wasn't me. If you're honest with yourself. But death is nothing to fear. Death is simply another phase in where you're going. So it's like samurai concept is you always go into a situation with the thought of this, I could die. But I ain't planning on it, okay? And I'm gonna be here as long as I can. I have grandchildren. I have great-grandchildren now. So I need to pass that on to them, whatever it is. My house is a Black History Museum. When you come to my house, Jorge, you have to read. It's a tour, okay? My kids aren't there anymore, so they're not my docents, you know, so you have to do it yourself, you know? And that's what it's about. You know, you can spend an hour or two in my bathroom, okay? I live in my history and in my art. So my house is a Black History Museum. It was the inspiration for the Sojourner Truth Museum, which is on 24th and Florence, which Shona McDaniels is doing now, okay? But she was inspired by my house. I was inspired by my grandparents, my ancestors. You can come in my house and you can see my grandparents. You can see my mother and father's marriage certificates the day they were married, and they were too young, you know, to be married. I know the exact spot in my grandfather's hayloft that I was conceived. The exact spot, okay? Because I think that's where I had my first sex. Same spot, okay? Up in the hayloft. I remember that big leg girl, okay? But it's like when I'm the founding father of the Birthing Project, which is the only maternity child health organization in the country since 1988. Catherine Hall, 8 women, and myself started it in 1988 here in Sacramento because of the infant mortality death. We are now in 9 countries, 98 cities, and have delivered over 13,000 babies. I have doulas here. My daughter does the doula training for all the doulas in the United States. She's also an equestrian, a couple of horses. They grew up like that on my farm here. But when babies are born in our project, we always give them the meanings of their name. That's why I asked you your name when you first came in. What does it mean? Because in some cultures, especially West African cultures and Native American cultures, you wait 8 days before you name a child. Because the child will take on the belief, the characteristics of the name, even if they don't know what it means. So you would never name a child something like Damon or Hitler or something like that, okay? Because we know Damon is demon in Latin. And think of all the demons you know, including Damon Wayne, okay? So names are important. We give them their birth story. We tell them what happened when they were born. And the birth story starts from the time the mother's water breaks until the time the baby arrives. What happened? Oh, well, you jumped in the car and you forgot the diaper bag and the car broke down before you got to the hospital and the baby was there in the car. What was the birth story? Okay? I was born at home. I was born at 818 Dakota Street in Coffeyville, Kansas, Montgomery County, 1942. The house was owned by a lady named Carrie Sexton that my mother rented for her. The house had been a bar prior to us living in it. And so there was still the long bar and, and all that. It was fun for me as a kid to run around in a house that was built like a bar. My father lived at 818 Delaware Street, which was just a few blocks over, but in the same vicinity, same address. Now, my birth story, that was back when we were colored. We wasn't black, we wasn't African Americans, we was colored people. So we had colored doctors because it was segregation. White doctors didn't necessarily work on colored people. So the colored doctor in town was a man named Dr. Butler, and very similar to Dr. McIntyre here in Sacramento. Dr. Butler always told me as a kid growing up, he said, boy, you owe me some money. I said, Dr. Butler, I don't owe you. He said, yes, you do. He said, boy, I done delivered all the little colored babies here in Montgomery County. He said, when I got to your grandma's house, I raised the cover to examine your mama, and you looked at me, and you blinked, and you sneezed. And I couldn't charge your grandma no delivery fee because you was already here. Boy, you beat me out some money. You owe me some money. So I grew up, moved away, California, joined the Marine Corps, came back. One summer, I was in Kansas, and I said, let me stop by the house. And I was driving down the street, and I said, that's Dr. Butler's house. I wonder if that old man's still alive. So I parked the car, went and knocked on the door. Lady come to the door, and she said, oh, Dr. Butler just finished supper. He said, he in here. He said, he remember all the little colored children he delivered. See if he remember you. So I went in, he's sitting in this big old easy chair, and he had a pipe. And she said, Dr. Butler, you know who grandbaby this is? He said, come here, boy. Come in. Yeah, turn around. He said, let me look at your head. He felt on my head. He said, sit down. He said, boy, where's my goddamn money? Okay? And he remembered. He remembered. Okay? So that's my birth story. That's the story I can tell my grandkids and my great-grandkids. You know, because my children, I got 7 children, and I was in the delivery room with all of them. I'm the first person to touch them when they cry. Okay? I put the silver nitrate drops in their eyes. I teach men how to chart PMS. You know, because you know your woman going through them hormonal changes, and it's better to be riding a thoroughbred than kicking a mule. Okay? So I show men how to chart PMS. So you know when she's going to have those mood swings. So we have to know how to be partners, okay, with our partner. Okay? Not you do this and you do the cooking and I do this and I do that. No, it's a team thing. But my birth story is a story that I can tell my children. I can think about my kids right now, okay, and they'll call because of that connection, because I was the first person to touch them, because of that spirituality, because of that connection. And we talk about deadbeat dads and fathers, but every Wednesday night here in Sacramento, there's a brother named Tim Poole, who's also the DJ on 97.5. And he has the Men's Healing Circle. And there are 40, 50 men from all over, some that are doing things, you know, in the community, some that have just got out of the penitentiary doing 20, 27 years, you know, 18 years, okay? But they're doing things in the community. Lord Tony with the barbershop has been working with kids and some unsung heroes here. But who takes care of the people that are taking care of the people? So the Healing Circle, every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock at the African Marketplace, is where men come together to heal. Black men, not just black men, brown men, people of color, any man that has things that he needs to heal from, to know thyself, Wednesday night, that's where we are. And that was started by the brother that had the program called Hooked on Fishing, not on violence. But we take kids out fishing. We take them out camping. We sit and we talk to them. You know, we listen to them. You know, we just hang out with them. Sometimes you don't have to say nothing. Just sit there. You know how it is with good friends. You know, you don't have to say a whole lot of words, you know. It's like conversations are efficient. Brother coming north, brother coming south. They pass each other, but say, what's happening? I hear you.
See,
Okay.
That's beautiful. Like while we have this, there's something very important that I want to get from you. Can I get you to hold your staff? And what I want you to do is I want you to say your name, say what your title is, and then say when you were born. So
Say when I was born.
yeah, what year you were born. So you're gonna say my name is this, my title is this, and I was born on this day.
Okay.
Okay, let me readjust the camera.
All right. You want me to do it like that? How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Hi.
You need it nicked up or do you?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Chaka, Dr. Chaka Imari Kairis Muhammad. I'm 81 years old. I was the cook at the Last Supper. And what else do you want me to?
Say it, so you're gonna say it. Let's get you to say it one more time. I like the way you said that. So you're gonna say, my name is this, my title is this, and I was born on this year.
Okay. My name is Shaka Imari Kairis Muhammad, Dr. Shaka Muhammad. My doctorate is in metaphysics. I'm 81 years old. I was born in February 28, 1942, in Coffeyville, Kansas, Montgomery County, USA. I'm a founding father of the Birthing Project. My title is Dr. Shaka Muhammad. I also am a performer. I'm an edutainer. I do what's called edutainment, educational entertainment. I use storytelling, poetry, hip hop, and rap as a teaching tool. I'm multilingual and multicultural.